This is map 20 from the summer 2022 campaign. If you have played it, you probably haven't noticed anything too special about it. It seems like a normal mixed track with some tech and some full speed elements, but there is more to it. Shortly after the campaign came out, people noticed that it is actually completed faster by turning around after the second checkpoint and driving the rest backwards. This changes the nature of the track quite dramatically, and instead of being of a normal Nadeo style, it is full of interesting transitions and tricks that would never have been included in an official campaign otherwise. We start off with a rather tame asphalt section. After passing the hole, we steer full left before the grass patch and go over the booster. If you tap steering correctly, you will arrive just right off the green arrow sign. On keyboard, use Action keys 3 at the start, then Action keys 4 at the hole, and then turn them back off before the grass patch. To get a good exit, it can be helpful to look for the last line on the black asphalt. Here we jump off to take the water bounce while steering left with Action keys 2. As soon as we are back in the air, we turn them back off so that we can tap left on dirt. Up to this point, I would say that this map was quite easy, but after the turnaround, every single part will be quite difficult, and it starts right here, with the turnaround itself. To make this, we want to be getting onto the asphalt already sliding and immediately tap right until our car straightens out. Then we start holding brake and right, which initiates a slide. Make sure to release the throttle until you are on grass. Here we release the brake and continue to hold right, only to countersteer left at the jump so that we land straight. If you struggle getting a slide at all, you are probably pressing brake too early while your car is still sliding left. To get the smallest turn radius with good acceleration, Hefest no slides after the landing. This requires keeping the tire tracks from the front and back wheels on top of one another. On keyboard we can do this by turning on Action keys 3 at the jump. The turnaround feels quite challenging but not unreasonable or random. After a while my success rate was not that bad, which can't be said about the next section. I continued all attempts that kept second gear and didn't run too wide. The checkpoint we are now crossing under is actually intended to be the last one before the finish. All that comes after it is this reactor grass section, and that's it. We still need 3 of the 6 checkpoints before we can drive into the finish. The kind of reactor you get when you drive over the block actually depends on the direction you're facing. Since we are going backwards, we no longer get the reactor that pushes us onto the ground, but instead the one that pushes us up. This one is usually more useful for cheese, as you already saw in my last video, but it is also a bit more janky. There are 2 different power levels of reactors, where the green-yellowish one from the last video gives you a reasonable amount of boost, the orange one from this map gives you an unreasonable amount of boost. If we would just continue to drive this road normally, we would have to release a ton to even make it to the next checkpoint, which would be very slow. Instead, we can use our overpowered reactor to jump to the other grass ramp and continue from there. There are a bunch of potential issues that we need to account for when attempting this. First of all, we do not want to go as fast as possible here. This would cause your reactor to run out too late at the next corner, which is impossible to deal with. Another issue that we need to account for is that if your car is going over the crest, the left side will be on its way down while you are taking off. The car tends to continue that movement while in the air, which leads to an uncontrollable roll to the left. This pretty much decides our road over the landing block. We want to arrive at the light and turn on the slope so that we can get as close to the flagpole as possible. If we are too far left on the exit or entry, we will either roll out of control or overshoot left on landing. Hefest steers left a little bit while in the air, which helps him straighten out and prevents transitioning too far left before the checkpoint. He also releases his throttle right after taking off and again right before landing. Now that we understand how we need to land, we can understand how we need to jump off in the first place. We need to set up to the left a bit to give us more space to angle or jump to the right. Then we full steer until takeoff. While we definitely need our car to rotate right in the air, We still need to counter steer at least a little bit to avoid overdoing this. This gives us the desired landing above the light with enough angle to make the turn for the landing. Be aware that the straighter your car is, the further it will fly. To make the jump while also rotating in the air, you need good speed. Try to get the third gear before the reactor and make sure you're not steering while your car is gearing. I found this section incredibly hard, but once I noticed the second release that Hefes does before landing, my success rate increased substantially. I still fail most of my attempts, but it doesn't take me 5 minutes of resetting to get it anymore. Now, if we did everything well in the previous section, this asphalt turn should not be that difficult. With a bit of releasing on grass and full steering right before takeoff, you can get a good amount of angle before landing. Then you might want to release steering a couple of times during the slide to run as wide as possible an exit, which lets you carry more speed. Make sure you release throttle while in the air, else you will jump way too far. Now we arrive at a dead end where the only way forward is this grass hill, but there is no smooth transition onto it. When bouncing off the surface, the front will hit harder than the rear, which causes your car to flip upside down. By default, this is not enough to get a full rotation. Luckily, there is a way to do better. By already steering left while going off the road and continuing to hold that direction while in the air, we can increase our rotation speed. I think this works because there is now a yaw and maybe a roll component to the flip. And contrary to the flip itself, these two are affected by the direction we steer in. This means continuing to steer left while in the air actually does something. If we would just hold left all the way, our car would land flat, but it would also be angled way to the left. We are already a bit slow for the next wall ride, since it is intended to be driven the other way with the reactor that you get in front of it. We do not want to lose any more speed than we have to. We improve our landing by doing a quick counter steer to the right once our car is facing somewhat straight. This prevents our angle from getting out of control. Also, the reduced rotation speed causes us not to land flat, which reduces our speed loss. We can do even better by tapping right to straighten out the car while it is still bouncing from the landing. Generally, we want a speed of 300 or faster to make the speed check. Just drive up the wall rather steeply, then after passing the corner without cutting it, steer at a constant rate during the first half. On controller you want around 40% angle, and on keyboard just tap left at a slow and consistent rate. Once you are confident you will make it past the next corner, put in more steering to get a tight exit for the ending. I would say the only part of the backwards driven section that is actually somewhat easy is this one. I still practiced it a bunch, but I think my success rate is not that bad here. After passing what used to be the third one of 6 checkpoints, we still need to make it into the finish. Since the developers of this map did not intend for us to take the road we did, there is no easy way. We are still driving the wrong direction, so the reactor that would usually push us down onto the road will now push us up. The only thing we need to do is somehow get up the road border and use the reactor to fly into the finish. This means we want the steepest possible angle when driving against it. The record achieves this by setting up as far left as possible. Then, as he crosses under the reactor gate, he full steers right and releases the throttle at the same time. Now he just holds right and taps the throttle a couple of times. As soon as the car hits the border, Hefes taps left once. This sends him against the pole, which puts his car into a roll. As soon as the car is straight, he steers left and right, which stops all rotation. I'm pretty sure the roll helps stabilize the car's pitch. If it wasn't for that, the front should come back down and you wouldn't make it into the finish. Be sure you release throttle as soon as the world record does, because if you are not angled against the wall enough, you will not have enough momentum to get up. You need to impact the pole when you are already in the air. Honestly, I think the ending is much easier than it looks, or I just got lucky on my finishes. Just really focus on getting the setup and then it should be straightforward. Also be sure you don't steer while hitting the pole. Alright, this has been my favorite run I have attempted in this game up to now, which makes it even more sad that I couldn't get a run in with the time I had. It's almost an entire map of weird stuff and cuts. The only part that bothers me a bit is that you have to be slow in the reactor section, else you can't get the black asphalt turn. Anyway, that's the video. See ya.